Welcome to today's Twin Cities Immigration Forum Welcoming Week edition. My name is Michelle Rivero with the City of Minneapolis Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and I'm joined by my counterpart in St. Paul. And Edmundo, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Michelle, and welcome to Welcoming Week. It's been a busy week already. I know both our mayors did a naturalization ceremony this morning. They naturalized, I believe the USCIS naturalized close to 800 new citizens this morning. And, you know, I think both our mayors were used to really big ceremonies. And what they're doing now since COVID is they split the room and they do 75 people at a time in a much more truncated ceremony, but it was still pretty exciting. People were pretty happy. It was just left me in a really good mood for the rest of the day. No matter how bad or how backwards my screen is, it's not going to ruin my mood today. So very excited about all these new citizens. And at this rate, we'd get, 40,000 new citizens a year in Minnesota. So that's a good place to start. So, well, welcome everyone to the Twin Cities Immigration Forum. Michelle and I started this forum right at the beginning of the Biden administration to help unpack a lot of the new executive orders and legislation that was being proposed. And over time, it's really kind of morphed into this place where we come together and talk about every kind of issue you can think about that impacts immigrants and refugees in the Twin Cities. So we're really excited about our Welcoming Week edition, and we are going to jump right into it. Why don't we start with Aaron Grossman from the City of Minneapolis. Are you ready, Aaron?
Yes, I am. Let me see if I can share my screen. I'll do one thing at a time here rather than trying to talk and share. Okay, well, great. Think a thumbs up, Edmundo. We can see it here.
Yep, we're good.
Great. Well, thank you, both Michelle and Edmundo, for inviting me to present this afternoon. I'm Aaron Grossman. I'm one of the supervisors of election administration with the City of Minneapolis Elections and Voter Services Division. We are fully looking forward to the 2022 general election, and Michelle and Edmundo asked me to join today just to share some types of general information, key dates, resources, things like that for you all to use in your own life. And then certainly we invite you to spread this information out far and wide to your networks and communities. We want to make sure everybody has accurate and up-to-date information so that they can vote or participate in the electoral process this year. I have room for questions at the end. Just based on how my screen is set up, I won't be able to see if somebody's raised hand or talking, but I don't mind questions anytime, or we'll certainly have time at the end here. Okay, so I'll jump in. 3 key dates. There's maybe many more key dates, but these are 3 that everybody should commit to memory. So just 10 days away now. Next Friday is the start of the absentee or early voting period. So voters can begin casting ballots for the general election, which is the 3rd date that you see here, November 8th, 46 days ahead of time in Minnesota. So we're amongst the first states in the nation to start casting ballots, especially the in-person voting on September 23rd. The other date sandwiched in the middle there is October 18th, which is the pre-registration deadline. That by this date, anybody who registers to vote will be included in the voter rolls on election day and can have a kind of super efficient, streamlined process at the polling place because all of their information will be up to date. Now, we want to be clear that this October 18th is not a registration deadline, meaning you have to be registered by this day or you can't vote. Of course, in Minnesota, we have same-day registration, which allows voters to complete their registration at the same time that they vote, whether that's on election day or actually early, either in person early voting or through the vote by mail process. Voters can fill out an additional voter registration form, provide the proofs of residence required, and complete their registration at the time that they vote. And then finally, of course, election day, Tuesday, November 8th. It's a little bit later than it's, I think, the latest date that it could be this year. So we get well into November when we reach election day. Quick overview of what's on the ballot. I think many of us, especially those who may have voted in the primary, are aware of some of these races. So we have the U.S. representative on the ballot. I do want to highlight that this is a year following redistricting. So we have all of the state Senate and state House legislative seats up for election this year. Then everybody else will see the executive offices in Minnesota: governor and lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state auditor, and attorney general. Moving on from there, it varies depending on where you live, but many voters will see county officials on the ballot. So those would be people like county commissioners, county sheriffs, county attorneys. Many will see local races here in Minneapolis, where I live and work. We have a school board race on the ballot. There may be other municipal offices depending on where a voter lives. And then as we often see in even years, we'll see various judicial seats, including Minnesota Supreme Court seats, Court of Appeals, and District Court. And I'll show you a sample of the ballot in just a moment here. There are many of the judge races. And then some places may have ballot questions. So ballot questions could vary on different things like different policies or like a school board levy, property tax levy, things like that end up on some ballots. So the number one thing that we want to share with all voters is that they can review what's on their ballot ahead of election day by using this website. And I think Michelle and Amunda will be able to share the slides. I have a number of links throughout here. And people can look up to make sure they know what's on their ballot, which candidates they're selecting between, and be prepared before they head to either the polling place or to an early vote center. Voters have the right to bring this sample ballot with them, so you can kind of do a practice run at home, and then you can bring your marked sample ballot and just copy it over onto the official ballot at the time that you vote. So here's what I was describing with the sample ballot. It's far too small to see, but just to illustrate, here's a ballot from Minneapolis. You can see a number of races on the front-hand side, which is the left, with constitutional offices. And then on the backhand side, the backside of the ballot, those are, looks like about 30 or so judge races, most of them unopposed there. We often get the question, especially from new voters, if they are required to fill out every race on the ballot, and the answer is no. Voters are welcome to fill out as many or as few races as they choose, and their votes in those races will count and not be in any type of jeopardy if they leave others blank. So finding candidate information, unlike other states, there's not a single Minnesota voter guide or official, government produced document kind of outlining different candidates and their policy positions, things like that. So that it does take a little bit of extra work from the voter or from different community organizations to make sure that voters are as informed as they can be. So with that sample ballot that I just discussed, looking up your sample ballot on the Secretary of State's website will provide links to the candidate websites of the candidates who provided an official website to go with their name. So that's a good place to start. Of course, that's going to be from the candidates' perspectives. There's a number of nonpartisan voter guides and questionnaires produced by various organizations and news outlets around the Twin Cities and beyond that we expect that we'll be seeing, as we get closer to election day. These tend to be publicized. And we also know that people will find information about candidates through various news channels, local news, social media, various online resources, conversations, things like that. And then, of course, there's various community organizations and advocacy groups, political parties, which will be, I'm sure, if they haven't already, contacting you to encourage you to vote for particular candidates or issues, or just to vote at all. Of course, that's our message here, that we want everybody who is eligible to vote to cast a ballot. On that note about eligibility, I just wanted to review the voter registration requirements. So the requirements do in Minnesota require voters to be a U.S. citizen, and at least 18 years old on election day, and that voters must be a resident of Minnesota for 20 days. So two important caveats there. One is there's no time limit on being a citizen. So I think it's happened before where people are sworn in and in their citizenship ceremony on election day and then head over to the polls, and that's a wonderful thing. So there's no time limit there. And then the residency requirement of 20 days in Minnesota, I just want to point out that that's just 20 days in the state. So if somebody moved to Minneapolis the day before election day and they were living in Duluth for the previous 3 weeks or something like that, they are welcome to vote at their where they're living on election day. And then the last two are additional requirements for voting is that the voter is finished with all parts of any felony sentence. So is done with parole and probation, or maybe called off paper. And then finally that there's been no legal decision specifically revoking the right to vote. So again, we want to be clear that only a court can revoke somebody's right to vote. It's not a family decision. It's not a doctor or medical decision. It would only be a court decision, and that's pretty rare. There's a number of links here about how helping voters register in advance. Online voter registration is open and will be through October 18th in time to register in advance of election day. And then there's some information about how to register at the time that you vote, whether that's on or before election day, that same day registration process. And we encourage all voters to check their voter registration ahead of time, just to make sure it's up to date with their current name and address. So again, these links will be included in what we share. So early voting, I mentioned, starts on September 23rd. The key takeaway here is that all voters in Minnesota can choose to vote early, unlike some other states where you might need a reason or an excuse to vote early. Ever since 2014, all Minnesotans who are eligible to vote can choose to vote early. There's two main methods that people will use to vote early. One is to vote by mail, and voting by mail, we can send a ballot out to a voter wherever they may be. So this is great for people who are traveling. We can send the ballot anywhere anywhere in the world. If we're sending it beyond the United States borders, there's another process to make sure it actually can get to the voter and get back to us in time to be counted. So the mail ballot process will start again on September 23rd. That's when all of the initial mailing ballots will get into the mail stream. So voters who have already requested a ballot should see one show up at their home as early as, so the week of September 26th or so. But there's not a deadline to request a mail ballot. Of course, we encourage people to do so with enough time for it to be sent to them and then returned to us by election day. But that can be requested over the next number of weeks. And the second option is to vote early in person. Early in-person voting also begins 46 days before election day on September 23rd. And voters can go generally to a city building, like the city hall or county government center in order to vote. So if you are in Hennepin County, you can go to your local elections office. So for us, that's Minneapolis Elections and Voter Services, but if you're in St. Louis Park, that's St. Louis Park City Hall, etc. Or you can go to the Hennepin County Government Center, and the Government Center serves voters from the entirety of Hennepin County. And it's similar in Ramsey County and neighboring counties where either the county or the cities are running vote centers for their residents. The early in-person voting process is pretty similar to election day, where people are issued a ballot there. There are a few extra forms to fill out in order to make it the absentee voting process, but we find that people really enjoy getting to vote at the time of their choosing. Then we'll see most voters, we expect, vote on election day. On election day, voters must vote at their local polling place, so that's the one assigned to them. It's generally near where they live. Polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and anybody in line by 8 p.m. is eligible to vote. So as we always say, you know, if you get there, you're there by 8 p.m., you will be able to vote. And then one thing to highlight is that in Minnesota, people have the right to take time off of work to cast a ballot. That means time off of work without using any type of paid time off, other, vacation balance, and without losing any pay. This is something that we want to make sure people know that they have this right and can invoke this right in order to cast their ballot on election day. Then I think I might have said something was the number one takeaway. Let me say that the previous thing was number two. This will be number one for election day at least, is that we are strongly encouraging everyone to look up their polling place. After redistricting that took place after the 2020 census, many precincts and therefore polling places have shifted as the boundaries have moved as part of the redistricting process. So a great number of people are voting in a new location than where they may have voted in 2020 or 2021 if there was an election for them at that point. So there's a resource from the Secretary of State's website where people can enter their address and then look up their voting location. And we really want to encourage people to do this so that they go to the right spot. They don't end up waiting in any type of line somewhere that they can't vote, and that it just makes election day as smooth as possible. We did see some of this during the primary where people went to, maybe the school that they'd been voting at for a number of years, and our election judges had to help them find where they need to go this year. So we're encouraging everybody to just confirm this before they head out to vote. I'll share this and you can read it through more in the slides, but in Minnesota, we have a voters' Bill of Rights. There's 14 different rights that are listed here. Some that we've highlighted about voting if you're in line by 8 p.m. or having time off of work to vote. But this is really key to make sure that people know their rights at the time that they go and vote. So things like being able to bring your children to the polling places and bringing a sample ballot, as we discussed, voting free of influence. These are all things that are important for voters to know. People who have been voting in Minnesota or voting in the United States may know these already or take these for granted. Oftentimes, we encounter voters who may have experience voting in their country of origin, for instance, and these are not necessarily rights that they're entitled as part of those elections. So we want to make sure that people are fully empowered to cast a free and fair ballot. On that note, a couple things to highlight about voter assistance. Voters can bring anybody of their choosing to assist them when voting. That can be a minor child, it can be a friend, it can be a family member, anybody that the voter would like to assist them. It's their choice. The exception to that is that they cannot bring their employer or they can't bring somebody who is their employer or an agent of their employer or their union. But other than that, it is up to the voter who they choose to assist them. Polling places must be accessible. There's a number of guidelines to make sure that they're accessible for those with disabilities and all. Curbside voting is offered at all polling places. Curbside voting allows voters to vote without actually entering the building. So we've seen an uptick of curbside voting, especially throughout the pandemic. This allows somebody to just come in a vehicle, or it doesn't have to be in a vehicle. They can just elect to complete their ballot outside, and a team of election judges will kind of serve as their proxy and move through the polling place and bring them the ballot so that they can fill it out and then go deposit it on their behalf. Throughout the City of Minneapolis and other jurisdictions throughout the Twin Cities, there's a number of interpretation resources. First and foremost, we work hard to staff our polling places with bilingual and multilingual election judges who are the best resource for serving voters in the language that they're most comfortable with. But we also have vendors that we can contact for translation services in the event that there's a voter who needs that type of service. So all of our election judges are trained on those resources, and certainly a voter who needs that type of assistance, we are ready and excited to serve them. All right, a few more things to note here about voter outreach and education. As you become messengers throughout the community, we strongly urge you and implore you to use information from official sources. So namely, that's going to be the Secretary of State's office and their website, or your local elections office. So people like City of Minneapolis, Ramsey County oversees elections for St. Paul. Those are going to be your official sources, up-to-date, accurate information. There are some opportunities for non-citizens to be involved, even if they aren't eligible to vote. So there's certain seasonal election work. Most of those positions have been filled at this time, but some that were open to non-citizens. And then, of course, nonpartisan or get out the vote type of work is always looking for volunteers to help get people to the polls and connect people with ways to vote that non-citizens can participate in. So one example, and there's a link here to the Secretary of State's website, is to host a voter registration drive. There's a number of different legal and legal requirements and guidelines for hosting a voter registration drive, but it's all laid out on the Secretary of State site, linked from this slide. So specific to Minneapolis, I'll share some of the things that we're working on this general election with respect to voter outreach. We'll be mailing a voter guide to all households, as we've done for the past number of elections, with some of the information I've shared here about key dates, how to find a sample ballot, how to look up your polling place. We translate these voter guides online and then distribute the digital versions as far and wide as we can to those who would benefit from them. As I mentioned, we work hard to staff by our polling places with bilingual election judges. We are still in need of more bilingual election judges at all times. You know, we focus on the main the main languages that we see here of Hmong, Somali, and Spanish, but certainly there are specific needs that we staff throughout different precincts for election judges to serve voters who speak Lao and Amharic, Oromo, sign language specific precincts, Vietnamese, Russian, Korean, and I think that's the ones that we are specifically targeting. And of course, we always welcome people who speak other languages as well. It's always such a great moment when we are able to serve a voter in the language that they prefer. Minneapolis will also has regular appearances on different community radio programs. So the ones listed here are associated with various communities in Minneapolis, and we have our staff appear on there to share similar information that we're doing here today, and we're excited to be back there. We partner closely with our Neighborhood and Community Relations Department, who are connected with many different community organizations and can share election information especially as things or if and maybe when things change as we near election day, just to get that information out as best as possible. And we continue to update our social media accounts and our website online to keep the information as accurate as we can. So if you're looking for multilingual outreach, the best spot to start with kind of the basic forms is the Secretary of State's website. There's a number of different voter outreach materials available. Generally, they're available in English and then the 10 languages shown here. And things like the fact sheet that I showed before with knowing your rights, forms like the absentee ballot application or voter registration application are translated here. And this is a great spot to start, either just to distribute these materials, or it provides translations for various words, phrases, or concepts in elections, which we know many things in this kind of technical world of elections don't translate neatly or don't have an analogous word in another language. So it takes a bit more time to either describe the concept or maybe a bit more space on the page to share the same message. So lastly here, and again, I said before, but these slides will be shared, I wanted to just put the contact information for some of the elections offices here for you all. So I have the Secretary of State's office, Hennepin County Elections, Ramsey County Elections, which runs the elections for St. Paul, and then our office in Minneapolis Elections and Voter Services here. We encourage you to reach out for accurate information, but also we can provide materials. So if you need a stack of voter registration forms or in 4 different languages, we have those, or would be happy to print them for you so that you can run the best voter registration drive possible. If you are most closely associated with a jurisdiction not listed here, there's a link at the bottom there, also from the Secretary of State's website, that allows you to find your local elections office. That will connect you directly with generally the county that you're working with. And then they can give you resources to connect to specific communities from there on out. Okay, thank you so much. There's a lot of information. I hope that you had 1 or 2 takeaways, namely, make sure that you and everybody you talk to is looking up their polling place so they know where to go on election day. But with that, thank you for your time. I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have about the information that I shared or about the upcoming election at this time.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thanks
I really
so much,
appreciate
Aaron.
it.
Yep.
And very important. And any questions for Aaron before we move on to the next topic?
Yep,
Anna,
I did
you
see
have
your
your hands.
comment in the chat. Anna, go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah. So I put this in the chat, but I was wondering, so I think like a concern, especially for immigration lawyers, is making sure that people who are not citizens are aware that if they vote, even if it's by mistake or register to vote, that it can have pretty serious adverse consequences for them because it's considered a false claim to citizenship. So I was just wondering if there are any efforts or like protections just so that people make sure that they don't inadvertently register someone who's not eligible to vote.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is something that we are more aware of now, at least in small ways. So like when we fill out a voter registration application with a voter, they might hand over their ID card and prefer us to kind of copy down a bunch of information. We will not copy over the information that we don't know from that. And so the very first question on the voter registration form is, are you a US citizen? That is not a, they're here, so we assume that they are, or something like that. We turn that form around and say, please, please indicate, please read and review and indicate your response here. There's that question, and are you old enough to vote and things like that. And so I know we've stressed with staff who are working either early voting or on election day that this is not a form that you are just like, okay, yep, you just sign here and you do this. It's please take your time, read and review. It does fall a lot on the voter. Of course, we're here to answer those questions, but we want to give the space and time and not necessarily rush through like we may with other forms. Of course, not us. We read every form that we've ever looked at, but yeah, we want to take that time. It's a good point. I don't know if there's more that's being done in order to not send mixed messages, because things like voter guides that go to all households might give an indication. Things like showing up on radio stations and giving, you hear the back half of a program or something like that, and not the part where we mentioned about the voter registration requirements. I know that we would be very eager to learn more about things that we might be able to do to make sure nobody falls into that situation.
That's super helpful. Thanks so much for the question, Anna. And Aaron, thank you for this presentation and for the PowerPoint, which does also clarify the qualifications for an individual to be able to vote. I think there's always more for us to learn from each other on how we can ensure that people have accurate information and understand the requirements. I'm also seeing a hand raised by Ian. Ian, would you like to proceed with your question? I'm hearing some static, so I'm not sure whether you're able to communicate, Ian. If you're not able to actually state your question aloud, you may want to put it in the chat. I'm hearing some unusual static right now. So For people who are not speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself too, maybe we can, there we go. We eliminated some background noise there. Ian, are you able to ask your question? No, it doesn't look like it. If you're able to put it into the chat or email it over to me, please feel free to do so. And I'll try and ask it for you.
Michelle, why don't we also take a second here and remind everyone, if you can, please identify yourself and your affiliation introduce yourself in the chat. We forgot to mention that at the beginning, and I'd ask everybody to just let us know who's here and identify yourself and identify your pronouns if you'd like.
Sounds good.
In the
And
chat.
Mireya, I see Mireya has your hand raised. Please go ahead, Mireya.
Yeah, I actually had a follow-up question for Aaron, kind of tailing off of what Ana mentioned. My name is Mireya Sejorosco. I'm an immigration attorney. I'm co-executive director of the Minnesota Freedom Fund and chair of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. And I just wondered if there was any specific language in the documents that are being provided that are specific to DACA recipients, because I know as a practitioner, I've often seen DACA recipients that don't understand the difference of what their status means and the fact that they are ineligible to vote, but are oftentimes confused for citizens because they may speak perfect English or have lived here their whole life and may not fully understand what it means to be a DACA recipient versus what it means to be a citizen, and just wanting to know if there was any language within the documents that are being shared out in the community that kind of help people understand that distinction too.
Thank you for the question. Not that I know of. Sounds like a great idea. I will look at the Secretary of State's page has some kind of nested pages for different populations, people who are college students or people who may have had a felony sentence or something, so kind of those unique situations. And I wonder if there is something about people who are, newly citizens or becoming citizens or are DACA recipients, as you mentioned. So I'll poke around for that and send it to Michelle if I can find something. But otherwise, no, I would agree that this is an area where voting might be different than all of the other government programs that you could interact with as a resident.
Aaron, really appreciate that. And also wondering whether Mireya and Ana, if you would consider putting your emails into the chat. I think that this would be a really worthwhile follow-up discussion. And I imagine that if there's more information to share, that it would be helpful to have your insight and to be able to connect. So appreciate the questions. If there are other questions that people want to direct to Aaron, perhaps you could put them in the chat or we can connect offline. But I'd like to try and ensure that we have enough time for all of our speakers today. And so with that, I think we'll transition over to our next speaker, who's Destiny Zhang with the City of Minneapolis Human Resources Department. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being with us today. And Destiny, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michelle, and I'll add my contact info into the chat as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Tried it earlier. All right, everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to also thank Michelle and Edmundo for giving me this opportunity to share with all of you the amazing career pathway programs that we have here at the City of Minneapolis. We know that jobs can really transform the lives of many people because it is definitely, a great place to really start your career, build your future for your family. And so at the City of Minneapolis, we're very intentional about building career pathway programs that are meaningful for individuals. And we have a variety of pathway programs, and I want to highlight a few of the programs that we have. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. I don't, I'm seeing that, one second, I'm seeing that this is not the right screen I want to share. So
Thanks. And while
Yeah.
you're pulling that up, if people are not muted, if you could mute yourself, and that would be awesome, so that we can hear Destiny.
me-
Thank you so much. And that's an awesome picture.
All right, so let me try this again. All right. I think that's the right screen. Is that better? Okay, yeah, that is
Yep,
the right
that's
screen.
the one
Okay.
big, slide
Yeah,
then.
it's the bigger
Perfect.
screen. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, just want to highlight a few of the programs that we do have at the city, but we have many, many programs. So any questions that you may have afterwards or during, just please feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to take those questions. At the city, we have 4 specific formats of our career pathway programs. Our pathway programs are really designed to train people in fields that are in high demands. And it's really to provide the training and the education, whether that's skills training, whether that's educational, whether that's certification pathways. And so through the different formats that we have, internships, fellowships, apprenticeships, and training programs, there are very specific targeted goals with each programs, ultimately with the goal that you obtain employment. So the first program I want to highlight exists within our fire department, and we actually have 2 pathway programs within our fire department. The first one is a very successful program that we've had for many years. It is our EMS Academy, or the Emergency Medical Services Academy, with the goal that after completing this program, you eventually become a firefighter, a paramedic, or a 911 dispatcher. This program is targeted for individuals between the ages of 14 and 21 years old, and have a, again, it is a, with the goal of becoming a firefighter, paramedic, or 911 dispatcher. We pay for the education, the books that's required through this program. It is a part-time program that's 12 weeks long. It is an amazing program because we partner with Hennepin County Medical Center. They come in and they provide the medical training. They provide the exact curriculum that you would need in order to obtain at the very end your EMT certification. And that's essential for becoming a firefighter and a paramedic. It's not essential for a 911 dispatcher. However, it does put you at an advantage when you're applying to become a 911 dispatcher because you have that medical training background. It is a fantastic program, very successful. Many of our current firefighters and paramedics at Hennepin County Medical Center, a few of our 911 dispatchers have come from this program, so it's very successful and have found very meaningful careers because of this program. The next program that we have is our Fire Cadet program. This is a 3 to 4 month program, and it is essentially an accelerated EMT program that we would give like within the medical EMS Academy, but also at the same time, you are getting your the fire science skills and education training. And it's a full-time academy. It is a 3 to 4 month program. We pay you to participate in the cadet program, also pay you to attend the medical training with the very end goal of becoming a firefighter. With the fire cadet program, it is a direct line to promotion within our fire department. Whereas the EMS Academy, it isn't a direct line of promotion because, again, you can choose to move into 3 fields here through a competitive process. But both programs are extremely successful, very meaningful career with the fire department. Super proud of the individuals that go through this program because they have demonstrated great success in their career with the city and with other organizations as well. Next program I'd like to highlight is within our police department program. First one is our community service officer, which is actually currently accepting applications right now. And in this program, it is up to 3-year program in which, we pay for your college tuition while you're attending the program, you not only are going to college, but you're also getting police department specific classroom and simulation training as well. The academy or the CSO academy can be anywhere between 20 to 30 hours per week because we want to be flexible and working with your college schedule. Again, with the goal that at the end of this program, you would become a police officer. Again, a fantastic program, very successful program. Many of our current officers have come through this program and have built great connection with our departments and within our community. Another program within the police department is our police cadet program. This, similar to the fire cadet program, is an accelerated law enforcement program. And generally, this program is targeted towards individual who has perhaps already have a degree that is non-law enforcement related and is looking for a career change. And so what we'll do is hire them on, give them the law enforcement training and education, put them through the state mandated skills training, and then also pay for the post certification, which is the police officer state training certification, which is required for becoming a police officer. It is a full-time position, so while you're attending that accelerated program, you're also getting paid throughout that whole program as well. Once you get your certification, you get promoted to police recruit, which is the academy for becoming a police officer. Again, another great program, very successful. Many of our current police officers have been successful through this program as well. Specifically, I would say right now, Police cadet will probably open about March, but community service officer is accepting applications. So again, share this opportunity right now with your network, or if you are interested, please apply. Super excited about having this open. Next, two programs I'd like to talk about are in the format of internships. These two internships typically open about January because they start in the summer. They are summer internships. The first one is our Urban Scholar Program. This program is designed specifically for undergrad and grad students. It's full-time. And it intentionally connects students with organizations, and these students work directly on site with these organizations where they can build their professional work history. Essentially, this program's goal is to provide these students with leadership and professional development training so that they can grow into positions of influence. Throughout this Urban Scholar program, they also get resume building guidance, they get mentors, they get an amazing experience because not only are they working within our city departments or within other public sector organizations such as the Met Council and Hennepin County, but they really build strong relationships at the end of the summer. And that's one of the things that I hear the most from our urban scholars is just the relationships and the friendships that they built, and growing that network is so important for our students. The next program is our Step Up program, and within our Step Up program, there are two levels of this program. There's a level 1 and a level 2. Level 1 essentially is designed for students that are 14 to 17 years old, and then level 2 is 18 to 21 years old. And depending on which level, we work around the different assignment or job that we would assign you to. This is, again, a summer paid program. It connects young people in Minneapolis with career experience, paid career experience, where they get real job experience. They get to explore different careers. They also get academic credit. And in this program, again, they get job coaches that are working with them directly and helping build confidence and building those professional skills. It's a great program, very successful program. At City of Minneapolis, we've actually have our step up interns or even urban scholars do internships with us and eventually become long-term employees, or they end their internship, they go work elsewhere, but they come back. And actually in our HR department, we've had 3 step up interns that had done an intern here at the City of Minneapolis, and then finished school, and they have come back and are currently still employed here at the City of Minneapolis in our HR department. So it's a really great program because of the fact that they leave the summer with these great relationships and this experience that is unforgettable, and it really builds that strong connection with these students, and they're great students. I will say in my experience of meeting these students and working with these students, the caliber of these students are amazing. Our next program that I like to focus on is within our Public Works program. And Public Works is our largest department here at the City of Minneapolis with a little over 1,000 employees, and they provide essential services to the City of Minneapolis. First position I like to talk about, or the first pathway program I like to talk about, is the Public Works Service Worker 1 trainee program. And this will open, but I think actually I talked to the coordinator of this program. They were thinking November this year. And we typically will send out, proactive communication around it, but I think it will actually open in November. But the Public Service Worker 1 trainee program, this position performs non-skilled and skilled manual labor work. So that would be driving trucks, operating equipment to support construction and maintenance activities throughout the department. And essentially, this trainee program is you're really building that work experience, getting a field of the work, the landscape of Minneapolis, to essentially then move into what is the second program here, which is Public Works Service Worker 2 apprenticeship program, where we provide you with the training and the skills, and also the pay for your CDL that you would eventually need to apply for and be certified in to be able to drive many of our different vehicles here within Public Works. It's a great program because there's a direct path of continuous growth. Another program within Public Works is the Water Distribution Operation Trainee Program. This particular program will actually open in December. And this particular trainee program is designed for you to gain the skills and the knowledge to essentially operate the variety of pumps and valves and pipes and reservoirs used in water production system at our water facility on the border of Minneapolis and Fridley there. And once obtaining those skills, you essentially get your certification becoming a water distribution operator. Again, a direct path of growth with these 2 particular programs.
That's
Great
awesome. And Destiny, if I can just interrupt you for 1 quick second.
Yeah.
I know that there is a wealth of information about these programs, and I'm curious about whether you can share a link where people can learn more as people are thinking about these possibilities and encouraging people to apply for these opportunities, and want to make sure that there's sufficient time for people to ask questions too, if they have them. So I'm wondering whether we may be able to pause here to invite people to ask questions if they have them and put the questions. Go ahead, Susan, please. Thank you.
Yes, hi, thank you for this information. I was curious about language, especially for the first 2 you were mentioning, fire department and police. Is English required?
English is required for those particular, because you are, of course, engaging with, residents and visitors of Minneapolis. Although individuals with bilingual skills are extremely valuable as well. And so those that have those bilingual skills are definitely encouraged to apply.
And then my other quick question, it seemed like a lot of the opportunities were younger ages, 14 to 21, 18 to 21. Is the public works program older than 21 or?
Yes, the Public Works program minimum age requirement is 18 years old. I will say with the fire cadet, there, you know, that the minimum age requirement there is 18. Same with the police cadet program as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any
Whoops,
more
also
questions?
wanted to see if there are
This is
other
Howard Dodson.
questions. Go ahead.
This is Howard Watson, and I had a question about, in addition to, you know, community service and cadet, is Minneapolis offering kind of a community outreach where people could just observe, like Brooklyn Park is doing this for 10 weeks, where people can just get to know about law enforcement. Is there an outreach program like that for folks that really don't want to do a career path, but would like to get to know more about MPD?
Yeah, so the MPD, they often have information sessions. I also know that they're currently working on some plans on doing additional community engagement. They've been doing a lot with specifically with different schools and community organizations. Not quite sure if they have a schedule of where they're at. That's I'll have to look, and then I can send that information to Michelle back to this group and get that to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? I can't see if anyone has their hand raised up, so I apologize if you do. Okay. Hearing none, I don't have much left, but I'll go through what I do have and then happy to take some more questions as well. But also if you do have questions, just feel free to speak up. Within our Public Works Department, the other pathway program we have is our auto mechanic trainee position. And these individuals, you know, they're hired on board, and we divide their time between working and getting hands-on experience in our garage where we provide services to a variety of different vehicles and fleets that we have. And then the other part of their time is actually attending a program with the school, and where they, you know, gain the technical knowledge and skills, and then eventually get certified for the auto mechanic role. It is an amazing program. Again, a direct line, a path to being hired as an auto mechanic within Public Works Department. Full-time, these are all full-time positions. The auto mechanic training position, we currently don't have it open right now. As you know, it really depends on the cycle of the schooling which we partner with. And so once those become open, we'll put those that out too as well on our career website.
Destiny, thank you so much. I really appreciate all this information. And if you can get us the links to websites, we will absolutely keep them and post them in our notes and get them out to everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do have a link in this PowerPoint, which I'll also share out. I'll share with both you and Michelle, and then you can distribute it to the group as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have some apprenticeship programs that are in our regulatory services department. This apprenticeship program actually is a partnership with our Public Works Department. So, you know, those different programs that I just highlighted in Public Works is a direct path also into our regulatory services, in which if you are employed in Public Works and interested in becoming a housing inspector, this apprenticeship program allows you to continue your work as a Public Works employee for 3 days a week, and then 2 days working in our inspections division within regulatory services. And this program is 3 to 4 months with the end goal that you'll get the knowledge, skills, and become certified in becoming a housing inspector, and you're promoted to being that housing inspector 1. Another great program. Provides a lot of exposure to housing inspections, we've actually just promoted someone into a housing inspector 1 position because of this program. So it's definitely a success. Again, another amazing program to be a part of. That's the last specific program that I'm going to highlight, but again, here at the City of Minneapolis, we have a variety of different internships, different apprenticeship programs, trainee programs. And so just a quick highlight of some of those programs that we have up here. We will, when these positions become open, we do put it on our careers page. We do put it on our Facebook page. We put it on our Twitter page. So these are great places for you to visit and get updates on when we're posting these positions. On our Facebook and Twitter, we usually are announcing these in advance of when they will become open, whereas on our career page, it's in real time. It becomes live when the application period becomes open. So following our Facebook and our Twitter page is a great way to become aware of the upcoming opportunities. Through our career page, you can also sign up for some alerts as well. And with those alerts, you'll get emails when these opportunities become available. And those emails are also in real time.
Great. Thank you, Destiny. We appreciate it. But we're going to have to move on because we've got a whole bunch of people and we want to get to a discussion as well. So really appreciate you. Thank you. Next, we have Sandra Filardo from Hennepin County, who's going to talk to us about the Bush Fellowship. Sandra?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to reschedule. When I looked at the agenda, I didn't realize that I thought that we would be over the presentations by 5:32, and I have my 11-year-old I have to go pick up. So, but Michelle will reschedule with me, and I learned a lot of information, and I will see you all soon.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra.
And really appreciate all that you shared, Destiny. This is wonderful. And I'm already seeing some questions in the chat, including people asking if you can put your email address and link for the job site to share with interested individuals. I'm so excited that you're available to share so much information regarding opportunities to learn and also work with the City of Minneapolis. So thank you for sharing that wealth of information with us. Really appreciate it. And I know we have a couple of more updates, and then we wanted to get into our focus conversation. So without further ado, perhaps we'll invite the additional individuals. Let's see, I believe it's Debbie and Brian talking a little bit about the Together in Hope and the concert that's coming up. So if you could share that, turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me? All good? Oh, great. Thanks. All right, Debbie's got that up. Thank you, Michelle and Edmundo. It's been wonderful to be part of this and learn about all of the things that you all are working on. And we're here just to share about an exciting musical project that's coming up and make an invitation. And so I'm Brian Schmidt. I am executive and artistic director of an organization called Together in Hope Project. And we're especially excited to be here during Welcome Week, since one of the prevailing themes in this upcoming concert is all are welcome. So what is the Together in Hope Project? We are a nonprofit organization focused on using the transformative power of music to bring people together around issues of our shared humanity. The organization was just founded in 2017 and has taken some ambitious projects focused on uniting people. And we're passionate about this work, and we're aiming to grow and continue here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and abroad. And so we're already dreaming up projects for the next years and continue to focus on healing and reconciliation in communities. So our current project is called The Stranger. This is a new piece of music that arose out of a desire to raise global awareness and aid about displaced persons and refugees. So this was a project launched in partnership with USA for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. And the result of this desire was an entirely new piece of music. It's about an hour in length. It includes first-person immigrant poetry, texts from many of the world's faith traditions, sacred and secular texts married together in this beautiful story that kind of goes throughout the work. And so the work was really written with the very intention to awaken and activate a world where all are respected and united and welcome. And so, Debbie, if you want to go to the next slide, then, like I said, the project really emerged out of awareness that the refugee crisis in the world is one of the great crises of our time, and we know that you all here in this forum are the people in this community here, our home, that are doing this work on a daily basis to welcome newcomers, to welcome refugees and immigrants, and help bring them into our community. And so we're immensely grateful to you for the work that you're doing. And we really believe that this piece speaks to a wide variety of people. The premiere performances happened in Norway just in July, and the effect was really one of transformation for the people in the audience. And I think there are many reasons for this. The music is, as I said, newly composed by a Norwegian composer, Kim Andre Arnesen. It's a mix of world music and pop and jazz, and at times feels very much like film music that we all encounter in modern movies, and folk and traditional styles of music. And so it's very all-encompassing. And then the narrative of the text continually circles around how we as a collective society can focus on welcoming and caring for and loving everyone. The text at one point, one of the movements in the middle of the piece is called "Call No One Stranger." Open your door, invite them in to sit at your table and share your bread. Call no one stranger. So we're very excited. These home concerts will be here in the Ordway Concert Hall, one of the great concert halls here in the United States, but it's here in St. Paul. The premiere performances, and these are the United States premiere performances here in our home. October 15th is Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, October 16th at 3:30 p.m. So one of the reasons we're here talking to you is because we have a goal to make this a welcoming event. That's the message of the piece, and it would mean, I think, so much to us. We're asking you to join us. And we want to invite refugees and immigrants here, the newcomers in our communities, to join us as honored guests for this. And we're offering free tickets. So as organization leaders, we're asking for your help to connect to the groups of newcomers, the refugees and immigrants here that would enjoy attending a concert. And so our goal right now is to have half of each audience at the Ordway be filled with refugees and immigrants here. And the Ordway seats 1,000 people. So we're essentially looking to get rid of and invite in to this performance to be part of community with us, 1,000 refugees and immigrants here. So the process is simple. We're trying to make this as easy as possible because we know all of you are busy and have tons of work to do. If you would like to get tickets, you just need to contact Debbie or I. And thanks, Debbie, for running the PowerPoint. You just send us an email and you say, I'm interested. I would like to get a group of people. I don't know what the number is yet, but I'm going to work on it. We're asking you maybe to be mindful that maybe groups of 30 or less, just so that we can make room for as many requests as possible. But we want to invite you. We want you to invite the people you work with so that this can really be a welcoming event. And we will help you order the tickets, process that. You can receive the tickets via email to print out. You can receive them via postal mail if you want to get hard copies of tickets. And right now we're just hoping that we're kind of setting a priority deadline so that we can manage all of these requests of October 1st. So 30 ticket limit at this point right now. My invitation is just be in touch. If you think that this is something you'd like to invite members of your organization that you work with, we want to honor you, the folks that are doing this work daily, and also all of the newcomers in our community to be part of community with us in these concerts. So that's our message. We're just, like I said, we're so grateful to be here and hear all of the wonderful things that you're doing in the community to support all of the refugees and immigrants here, and I'm just thankful to you. So thank you, Edmundo and Michelle, for the invitation here. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and happy to take any questions via email as well.
So this is Howard Dotson again.
Yeah.
I can send out that invitation through the Ukrainian Community Center for 30 Ukrainian refugees that have resettled.
Wonderful. Howard, are you able to send me an email? I can, that'll be the easiest way for me to keep connected.
Yeah, if Michelle could respond, because I'm by phone, I couldn't get on Teams.
You bet.
Yes, that's fine.
We'll figure out how to connect with you.
Yep. If you want to give me, if you want to send me an email quick, Howard, I'll put you in contact with each other. Thanks for that.
We'll get you 30 Ukrainians for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Howard.
Of course.
Michelle and Edmundo, I'll be happy to turn this back over to you, and I can answer any other questions that come. So just let me know.
Sorry, everybody was muted. I see Lillian, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I had a question. Thanks, Michelle. It's good to see you guys here. Brian, I was just wondering, there's no option for folks to directly contact individuals to directly contact you and request tickets, unless I missed it. You'd rather go the route of organizations or leaders. I'm a community leader, by the way, my other job. You'd rather have leaders ask for these tickets and then work on figuring out how many folks are going to attend?
It would be helpful if it was groups of people, but if you have someone that you know specifically that's interested, you could give them my contact information.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. And any other questions that people have? I see another hand raised, but I can't see who it is. If you have, oh, Ian, I see it. You've got your hand raised. Did you have another question or comment?
Yes. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thankfully.
Yes.
Sorry about the problems earlier. But you're loud and clear now.
That's okay. I do, I definitely apologize. I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, Michelle and Edmundo, I really got to say, in so many ways, this is my quote unquote inaugural, show up and meeting to this group and this forum. But I can tell you that I'm really, I'm very impressed with what's going on and the work that you guys are doing. My question that I had for Aaron, I guess we can always get back to that. But keeping it current for right now, Brian, I just really want to say again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I kind of had the same question. I'm originally from Uganda, but also like Lillian and a lot of us, we are leaders and we wear so many different hats in our communities. And so I want to figure out a way, especially as we think about the different communities that are represented in Minnesota. Do you have a plan of trying to make sure that you're reaching out to the different communities? In other words, what I'm saying, if we have, for example, an Eritrean community or some of the other communities of Togo that are not necessarily always on the map, how are you doing outreach to those communities? And if you're not, how can we support you in that way? Thank you.
Ian, thank you so much. I mean, one of Michelle and Edmundo have been the biggest resource, and we're just beginning to learn how to communicate with all of the communities. So I appreciate your question so much. And honestly, we do need help. There's no way that we can do this by ourselves, and so. I would say, I would just love to have a conversation, whether that's via email. If there are ways that you can help and you have suggestions, we are open to that. And so we're looking to all of you as resources And we want to do the work, but if you have suggestions for how we can connect broader and with different communities, please just let us know how that goes. And so I'd say just, if we could get a good conversation going via email, and we're open to ideas and wanting to reach more people.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well,
All right.
well thank you,
Ian.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Brian. And if there are any other questions or people would want to connect with Brian, Michelle and I are happy to connect everyone who is interested via email. Okay, why don't we next move on to Susan Hicken. Susan, you want to tell us a little bit about the Welcoming Center?
Sure. Is my screen sharing? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we are, but it's black. Oh, there we go. Yep, looks good.
Good. Okay, just really quick, thank you for this opportunity too. We were so excited to support this Welcoming Week effort. And so our Minnesota Welcome Center, our event for this is an open house that we're having this Thursday, an open house and cultural food night. 7 o'clock, 3921 Nicollet Avenue. Our focus is on Hispanic immigrants and refugees, but anybody is welcome, and come and see. All of our resources are free. English is a big deal. A lot of our immigrants and refugees want better jobs, but they know they can't get there without English often. So that seems to be our biggest ask, and there will be actual classes running that night if you're interested to pop in and see what we do. We've also found, especially during the pandemic, emotional resilience has been a great need. Cultural adaptation, just navigating the American medical system, personal and family finances, your children's educational opportunities. Those classes run, like 3 times a year. And the schedule will be there that night of the open house. We are so loving partnering with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. They come in and do a monthly workshop for us. Path to legal status is a big one, the process of naturalization and my rights as an immigrant. I just loved what we were talking about, the election, and that is a very big need. Addiction recovery support and connections to many community resources. Lutheran Social Services has been phenomenal with needs with food and housing and whatnot. But feel free to reach out to us at mnwelcomecenter.org. If that is where, if you know of people who might need some of these, that is where they can register. But we hope to see anybody that can make it this Thursday at 7 p.m. So
That's awesome. And Susan, could you put the link into the chat too, just so that it's there as well for people, if you have the possibility of doing that?
I am so embarrassed, Michelle. I cannot find the chat.
Let me see if I can pull it. It's okay. I'll try and pull it and put it into the chat. Thank you.
So sorry.
No,
it's okay.
No worries.
It's mnwelcomecenter.org.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, next we're going to get into our discussion for Welcoming Week today. We'd like to talk a little bit about Welcoming America's theme for the week, which is where we belong. And by focusing on places and spaces that foster belonging, such as cities, workplaces, neighborhoods, and schools. Where we belong, the theme this year aims to go deeper and spark individual reflection on how and why belonging occurs and ways we can break barriers so that places can foster belonging for all, including immigrants and refugees. And today we want to talk about places that foster belonging. We are really working hard to make sure that the Twin Cities foster belonging in our places where we belong, including immigrants and refugees. But we also want to talk a little bit about the barriers. And I know there was a letter in the Star Tribune or to the editors a weeks back, and the American Immigration Lawyers, the local Minnesota Dakotas chapter, responded to that letter. And I know there are Medea and Anna are here from AILA. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that letter and Ayla's response as a way of breaking some of the barriers that we're seeing to welcoming.
For sure. And just so that you know, whoever was sharing their screen last, we can still see your screen. So I just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michelle, can you unshare me?
So if you click on the box that, oh, there we go.
There we go. Thank you. So sorry.
Oh, no, you're still on. I think you might still be on. Yep, you are. So it's the box right next to the leave.
I don't so. Is anybody else seeing it still? The red box is not around the screen anymore.
Oh, I got you. Okay, let me see if I can unshare. Anyway, it's a very pleasant image. So even if it stays there, I think it's fine as a backdrop to our conversation. So
No, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so pathetic.
no, we're good. We're good. Because I
Teams
think
is
Edmundo's on.
complicated.
Yeah, I mean, like, we could look like cats, and there have been all sorts of like snafus with Teams and
Teams is
Zoom over
hard.
the past few years, so
If
this is nothing.
Someone else share your screen. Somebody else.
So I think someone else is sharing their screen now that's sharing the Welcome Week theme, We Belong.
Great.
Yep.
And so,
Yep,
hello again, everyone. My name is Mireya. I am chair of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Minnesota Dakotas chapter. And about a week ago, there had been a letter to the editor in the Star Tribune that was focusing on rhetoric that is degrading and what we would consider as immigration practitioners very racist, based in false narratives that we've heard time and time again throughout the last 4 or 5 years, revolving around immigration and what immigrants are within our community, and using rhetoric that's suggestive of replacement theory, different conspiracy theories, and just plain false information. And we had been alerted to it by a few of our members and felt that we needed to respond as immigration attorneys who work in this community, who do this work every day to kind of correct that narrative. And our executive committee alongside our advocacy committee, who Ana Patratz Acosta is the chair of that committee, decided to make a response to that. And it was posted on Friday by the Star Tribune. So should I go into what it said?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can sort of build on that. So,
Yeah,
and I was gonna say, so as Mireya had explained, there was like a pretty ugly letter to the editor that was published on Friday before Labor Day weekend. And kind of what we did is just kind of, and what I will share also, and I think this is maybe kind of like a good message for this group, is that I feel like sometimes those of us that are sort of like on the pro-immigrant side of the argument, that we sometimes don't do as good a job as we could with explaining things, and like we're usually on the defensive when it comes to a lot of the rhetoric around immigration. And especially during the Biden administration, I think that there hasn't really been enough effort on the part of both leaders and then also like those of us that are in the know about these issues to make sure that accurate information is being disseminated around or like to the public, because yeah, and I helped to author the letter that was published in response to the letter to the editor that was in the Star Trib over Labor Day weekend. And I think a very telling quote, which is what we started with, was a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. And I think that's like very, very true when it comes to a lot of the rhetoric around, especially around what's happening at the border. So kind of what we did is just went point by point with each of the arguments that this person made in their letter and just kind of like debunked it. So for example, that the border was secure under Trump and it's wide open under Biden. We were like, actually, no. We spend just as much on border security under the Biden administration as we did during Trump. If anything, there's been an increase in funding for CBP. And the policies that kept the border closed at the very end of the Trump administration are still in place because of a court order. And just kind of like going point by point to debunk those myths. So
and
I'm
we've
happy to
shared a
answer any questions
copy
too.
of the letter. Yep, we
So it looks
shared
like
a copy of the letter in the chat. I don't know if you're able to see it, but and we'll also send this out afterwards. Thank you so much, Mireya and Anna. I really appreciate the work that ELA Minnesota Dakotas has done, and also the fact that you're here to share information, and want to make sure that I know that there are other, and I see Ian has a question or comment. Please go ahead, Ian.
Yes. I just wanted to kind of make sure I don't miss this opportunity, especially with what Anna and Rela just said. One of the things that I see that really runs rampant in the community is lack of information or sometimes access to that information. And for me, for example, what you just said right now, as a leader in the community that is trying to explain in the community or even give information, whether myself or in the community using the platforms that we have, I think I'd really, if that already exists, I would love to get my hands on it. If it doesn't, I would really like to see a way how this really good actionable information is passed on to leaders in the community that we can either share with others or use in our own ways when we are serving the community.
Thank you, Ian,
Thank
for
you
that.
so
And
much.
yes, we can certainly share that, and I can share my email address again in the chat if you'd like, because we're happy to share it with you if there's additional information that we can provide to communities. We work with a number of communities, organizations and leaders throughout the Twin Cities and across the state. So if we can share information more widely, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, and just
This
to
is
kind of
Howard.
piggyback. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, just to piggyback on Mireya's comments, there are a number of representatives from organizations that I know are on this call. So for example, the Advocates for Human Rights has an educational arm that I know has a lot of really great materials to sort of educate the public on specific issues around immigrants and refugees. So I would encourage those of you that are also on the call that have resources, particularly information to sort of debunk myths around immigration. I think that would definitely be very useful to share, because I know that there are a lot of people, in addition to Mireya and me, who are doing a lot of this work, including people on this call.
This is Howard. I just wanted to lift up, I was at the border 2 weeks ago with Casa del Migrante, and there was a Haitian family. There's a lot of discrimination going on against the Haitians. And this lady was out on the street for 10 days. So anyone that's working on the border to lift that issue up.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Howard. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your reflection. And, want to invite others. We're very grateful that you're participating in this conversation today, and really wanted to invite others. If you have thoughts on fostering a sense of belonging or portraying an accurate immigration narrative, it truly takes all of us. And so for the couple of minutes that we have left, I invite all of you, if you have a comment to share or a perspective that you'd like to communicate to others based upon your work in fostering a sense of belonging, and also working to promote an accurate immigration narrative and community, please feel free to raise your hand or just start talking. Invite you to share your perspectives with us here today.
Yeah, Michelle, what I really loved about the ALA letter was that it addressed some very negative comments and a lot of inaccuracies about what's going on at the border. And I think that's really important to fostering a sense of welcoming, because that negative narrative is really making it uncomfortable for many people to be here, and it's creating a lot of anger among people who would otherwise be welcoming. And I think it's really important. And I just want to lift up, I don't know if Bruce Corey is still with us. Bruce was on earlier, and Bruce worked on a video, an 18-minute video that we will share with the notes we send out. Just a really wonderful video of people at the state fair talking about Minnesota and the nature of people who welcoming here. So I think it's really a beautiful video, and I know we're short on time, so I also want to, I see that Mark, you're here, and I really wanted to touch base with you and see, maybe talk a little bit from Global Minnesota's perspective, Mark Ritchie, about what it means to be welcoming and making Minnesota a welcoming place. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, some of you many years ago might remember a book called Voices for the Land. A couple of our great local creators made, and one of the young Hmong writers who became famous being a Hmong writer wrote about how her father, who the two of them came over from the refugee camps, recreated in their backyard a piece of nature, a piece of land, a place of peace for him, a sacred place. And she kept saying, Minnesota, people coming here will want a place that's peaceful, that's nature, that's not just the city and all of that. And I've noticed in the agricultural committee of Minnesota Africans United, the folks that are now farming and farming successfully, there's a kind of, depends on where you're from and what you were doing before, but there's something about being able to dig into the land and be connected to the land and to produce and create from the land. That's also part of being a welcoming place. And I hope Minnesota keeps advancing on that front. These calls are incredibly inspiring, and I really want to make sure others in our community know all this amazing information that's being delivered, but it means that amazing things are going on. And so thank you and bless you.
Thank you. That's
thank you, Mark.
Mark. I see somebody else has their hand raised.
It's Jude. Jude, how are you? Welcome.
Jude, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know we're out of time, but this is a different thing about budget. If there's formal plan for budget that will help immigrants and refugees, and I know some of the departments will be closing intake this week, and even the governor's office as well. So if there's nothing, I think it's important, but if that has been taken care of, just wanted to remind us that this is a 2-year cycle and we need to make our voice heard and pursue budget as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jude. I see a comment in the chat from Hacer. Rodolfo, I'm not sure if you'd like to touch on that a little bit. I know we're just a little bit over time, but would love to invite you to share additional information that you'd like to share. Or I can read it out for the group. Hacer is currently developing a series of research projects. Oh, Rodolfo, I see you. Go ahead, please. Thank you. Hola. We can see you. We can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us, but I'm just going to read what you put in the chat in the event that people cannot read it. Okay, Hacer is currently developing a series of research projects focused on the importance of immigration for the economy in Minnesota. One of them is to highlight the entrepreneurship among immigrant women from Latin America. Another is exploring the economic impact of immigrants in southern Minnesota. Thank you for that. And I see Lillian has also shared that agriculture is a viable economic opportunity for immigrants and refugees. Just want to take a second to share the Journey to Belonging in the Twin Cities report that City of Minneapolis and City of St. Paul worked on along with a large group of individuals representing organizations, including the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, the St. Paul Chamber, and many of you also in collecting data that also shows the demographic information and contributions of immigrant and refugee residents in the Twin Cities, and also lays out goals and strategies to promote immigrant and refugee inclusion. So I'll also include that into the chat because wanted to make sure to mention that during welcoming week. And I see that we're over time, but I also see that Jude has raised his hand again. So Jude, if there's more that you'd like to share, please feel free.
No, I've already shared. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much. So I'm putting this information into the chat, the Journey to Belonging in the Twin Cities report. Really grateful that you all chose to spend this last hour and a half here with us to celebrate Welcoming Week, thinking about how we foster a sense of belonging in our communities and how we work to promote an accurate immigration narrative is an important objective of today's meeting. And the speakers that we invited really wanted to invite individuals who could share information about how people who have immigrated to the United States, whether they've become naturalized US citizens or even not, have access to different opportunities, whether it's through voting for US citizens, working for the City of Minneapolis, participating in welcoming initiatives, and more. So we're grateful that you're here for this conversation today and invite you to continue the conversation, certainly monthly, at our Twin Cities Immigration Forum, but there's also a wealth of activities taking place this week in recognition of Welcoming Week and beyond. So please visit City of Minneapolis Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs webpage. I put a link into the chat. We'll also be sharing some flyers for some upcoming events, including a naturalization information session taking place this Saturday. There'll be some additional programming the week of the 23rd and the 24th, as well as beyond. So Edmundo, I'll turn it over to you if there are any last words and to close this out for this evening.
I just want to say thank you to all our speakers and for everyone who joined us today. And thank you for continuing to be welcoming communities, and I'm excited for the future. And our next meeting will be October 11th at 4:30, and we'll send out a link and an email updating everyone to join us. So thank you, and continue having a wonderful welcoming week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Si se puede.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
One second.